Alan Funk. I'm the District Attorney in Nashville. With regards to this case, Daniel Hambrick did not need to die. Andrew Delke was not justified in killing Daniel Hambrick. Sorry. Mrs. Hambrick's emotions are real. They're legitimate. I think we should all understand that no one should lose a child, especially not at the hands of a police officer that's been sworn to protect and serve the community. Never in Nashville has an officer been indicted for first-degree murder. Never in Nashville has an officer been convicted of any form of homicide. This case is significant. A lot of places around the country, it's rare to see an officer charged. It's even more rare to see an officer convicted. It's even more rare to see an officer plead guilty and go into custody from the courtroom. This has been a hard case. For 3 years, we have done nothing but work really hard to support Daniel Hambrick and victims of violent crime. It's been a long 3-year struggle, and this has never been a slam dunk case for a murder prosecution. Daniel Hambrick, there are a couple of considerations. Daniel Hambrick did in fact have a gun and he was carrying it in his hand. That does not mean that an officer has a right to shoot him in the back when the man's just running away. Daniel Hambrick did not ever threaten Andrew Delke. He never tried to shoot Andrew Delke. He just tried to run away. But the fact that he had that gun in his hand, even though I don't think it meant that Andrew Delke had a right to shoot and kill Daniel Hambrick, the reality is that would have made it a much more difficult case to get 12 jurors to unanimously believe that this was a murder case. Fact of the matter is, Andrew Delke did tell Daniel Hambrick to stop and warn him that if he didn't stop, he would shoot him. Just because a man who's running doesn't stop does not actually give police a justification to shoot him in the back while they're running away. But the fact that those statements were made would make it harder to get 12 jurors from this community to all unanimously decide to bring a murder conviction. If we tried this case, we're ready to try this case. We've been ready. We've been working for 3 years to get this case ready. But what would the result of the case be? There was a very large percentage that would have been a hung jury. In fact, in talking to Chief Drake yesterday, his reaction was, well, he thought there was a 90% chance it would be a hung jury and it might hang along racial lines. Members of my office on the trial team acknowledged that there was well over a 50% chance that this jury would hang. And no verdict, no judgment, no accountability. The emotion that we saw in this courtroom today would have been played out 100-fold if there'd been no accountability in this case. As we talked about earlier, there's never been a police officer convicted in Nashville for an on-duty shooting of a black man. Right? Well, now there has been. He's been convicted. He's a convicted felon for the rest of his life. He's got no chance at early release. Right? And he just went into custody today. Tonight will be the first night Nashville has ever had a police officer in jail for shooting a black man on duty. That's significant progress, because what we are saying is that all of us are accountable. The law should protect everyone in Nashville, and the law should hold all people in Nashville accountable for any violent acts or any unjustified killings. That's the way that's the place we have to get to as a community, and we took an important step here today. This is not a happy day, but it is a day that Nashville needs to have had to be able to make progress toward the ultimate goal of having a safer community, and a community where the police officers and the community work hand in hand to try to make sure that we're a safe place. Right? I believe in Chief Drake. I believe John Drake has already taken some very important steps toward bringing the community together. In talking to the commanders around the city, what Chief Drake says to them on the Friday upper-level meetings called ComStat is no longer how many arrests have been made and what are your statistics, but instead what he says is what are your issues in your precincts and what support do you need. That's a significant step. He's taken a number of steps to have outreach to the community and working really hard with Inspector Imhoff to actually do some really innovative partnerships with the community. He's taken tremendous steps with regard to mental health issues and trying to make sure that we decriminalize mental health. He's trying to make this city safe. He's been on the job for 6 months. And what we heard today was we heard Andrew Delke say something different from what the narrative has been from the police union for the last 3 years. The narrative that I've heard over and over again is Andrew Delke's being prosecuted just for doing his job. Well, he wasn't doing his job because he wasn't justified in shooting Daniel Hambrick. Right? And Andrew, you don't have to believe me, Andrew Delke said that in court today. His use of force, his deadly force, was not reasonably necessary. Right? He's admitted that. That's the first step toward allowing Chief Drake to be able to tell the rank and file, do your job the way you've been trained, respect the citizens, and hopefully no more mothers will have to grieve their children. We're making progress as a city. Today was a very significant step, but at the same time we have to validate the fact that for a lot of people, especially Ms. Hambrick, but for a lot of people in our community, today's event is triggering. It's triggering. It was triggering when the video came out that showed Andrew Delke shooting Daniel Hambrick in the back. It's triggering to hear that the case has been resolved on a 3-year sentence, right? But with the facts that were involved in this case, with the considerations that the jury had we taken this case to trial, we not only would have had to continue to live with the narrative of he's being prosecuted because he was doing his job, but we also had a very significant chance that the result of that trial would have been something other than accountability. Today's the first step in that. Nashville is a safer place, and we're making progress. Got a long ways to go. But tonight, we will be, with the conviction today, with the guilty plea today, with the incarceration today, and with our police chief being able to work with his officers because of the actions that were taken in court today, I really believe that we have taken some important steps toward reconciliation. Reconciliation's hard, right? But the court system has to be an agent, an ambassador for reconciliation, because criminal court system can drive the community apart, or the criminal justice system can bring the community together. And we've got to get there together. And one of the ways we do that is by recognizing feelings that people have, the emotions that people have, validating people's loss, but also holding folks accountable. I'm not the mayor. I'm not the police chief. I can't dictate how police do their jobs. But it is important for Chief Drake to be able to make progress in best practices with regards to policing, and I believe Chief Drake can bring this community together. And I think that this court system, I think my office is part of that, and we're going to continue to hold people accountable who commit unjustified killings, no matter what their profession is, even if they're police officers. But it is my hope that with today's case, today's conviction, that we're not going to see any more of those. And I pray for Nashville, I pray for Ms. Hambrick, and I pray for our police officers, and I thank God for Chief Drake and for the people that protect our community and the people that live here in Nashville. With that, I'm not going to take questions now, but this afternoon we're going to find a time when I can answer anybody's question that has.
Can you at least answer, when did you let the family know? When did you let the family know? And can you understand why they are frustrated and why they feel, especially black folks, feel this is not enough?
We've been talking with the Hambrick family for 3 years. We've had them in our office countless times. I know Ms. Hambrick's feelings, right? I know her pain and her loss. We've had many deep conversations, and I've talked to her lawyer, Ms. Kimbrough, many, many times. plea bargain, the defense attorneys reached out this week asking for a plea bargain that would include probation. I did not see that as accountability, and I said absolutely not. Wednesday afternoon, they brought me a plea petition signed by their client that had the statement that he had written that he actually read in court, as well as a sentence of 3 years of incarceration, which I knew would be the first time there was incarceration. I also recognized that it was important that the narrative from Mr. Delke to other police officers was he wasn't just doing his job as a police officer. This was not a justified killing. At that point, me and the trial team got together. We discussed that no result from this case, this trial, was going to be completely satisfactory and achieve every goal that we would like to have out of this case. But we felt like that checked the boxes, and I was not willing to risk not having a felony conviction, not having him off the force, not having him incarcerated, not having him be able to make a guilty plea where he conceded that he did in fact use deadly force that was not reasonably necessary. I think that's important, right? As far as retribution goes, 3 years is not enough, right? But I made the decision that what we were going to try to do with this case was trying to have a conclusion that could truly affect systemic change, right? That's what I wanted. So Wednesday night, made that decision. I then met with the attorney for the family, informed the attorney of the family what was going on, and offered to go visit with Ms. Hambrick Wednesday night. We had already scheduled a time for Ms. Hambrick to come in at 2 o'clock, and the attorney said, let's leave this at 2 o'clock so that when she comes, she can have her family and talk through this. She came in at 2 o'clock. I met with the family. We sat around a table. I explained my reasoning. She immediately reacted because she's lost her son. And however this case concludes, that's an emotional and traumatic time, right? And so she did react, and she started notifying people, not only of what the deal was, but of her displeasure with the deal. But I met with her lawyer on Wednesday night. I met with her yesterday afternoon. Was willing to go and meet with her immediately upon making the decision to accept the latest offer from the defense. And so, we stayed in contact with her for 3 years because we've been fighting for her son and for her for the last 3 years. I certainly understand her wishes that this sentence may have focused more on retribution and a longer sentence. But in a criminal court system, the district attorney has to make those calls, and that's the call that I made.
Would you normally have consulted with her before making that decision? In another case, would you have consulted with the victim?
My office always consults with victims, and the most important thing is to make sure that we know what the victim's wishes are. How are you hurt? What do you need? We know that what a victim's goals are for every case, and we do our best to make sure that they have a voice in our decision.
But you don't think in this instance, she's saying her voice wasn't, and we got the timeline, and we appreciate you laying that out.
Right.
You said that the families consulted often, but you laid out that you notified them that the decision was made,
Right.
not consulted with them prior to making the decision. Can you speak to why
Right.
you commonly do that, but didn't do that in this case?
This was consistent with the way that we handle cases, right? We consult with victims regularly. I knew where she stood on this case, right? I knew what her position was. She wanted him convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to prison for the rest of his life, right? I mean, I knew that. And so this was not this is not a case where she did not get to have a voice, because we'd had many conversations with that.
So she was included in the plea deal discussion?
She had been included. Ms. Kimbrough had been included in some plea deal discussions that had been taking place before. And every time that we met with her, we talked about what could happen in this case. With regards to when we were presented with that plea petition, we had to first decide what's in the best interest of the state of Tennessee. And we followed the victim's rights constitutional provision, which is we've been in contact with her for 3 years, and we informed her of what was going to happen, and we made sure that her voice was heard, even if ultimately I made a decision as the district attorney of how to handle the case in a way that was different from what she wanted.
So the argument-
Guys, we need to cut this. Schedule, just give me a call. Jennifer Funk's got to meet with Deputy Moore and some others. So let's find a time this afternoon. Just email me and we'll have you come in. If he has time this afternoon, answer all of your questions. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Great.
Appreciate it.